We're down, all right, we're down here at the University of Little Rock at the Sequoyah Institute Gathering and Conference talking with Richie Plass, Menominee and
Stockbridge-Munsee.
Stockbridge-Munsee. You were just telling us a little bit of a story about one of the subjects you're interested in, talking to an elder man at a protest about mascots and caricatures of Native Americans. I wanted you to recite that story
Sure.
about what led up to the old man telling you some things.
Sure. We were at a conference, and I had just made a presentation on the mascot logo issue, and I actually had the exhibit up, the Bittersweet Winds exhibit up, and when everything was done, this elder came up to me, this elder Indian gentleman who I didn't know, and he told me, he says, I just want to let you know, he says, I like your message, I like your style, I like everything that you use. He says, and I really get it. He says, but let me tell you my point, he says, is that, he says, if we as Indian people believe what all the books say, what the government has says, what history says about us, he says, and that we should feel honored because they say we use your name and image because it shows strength, it shows leadership, it shows courage. He says, but if you look at it at the real way, he says, man, from day one we got our asses kicked. We were like gone. He said the only time, he says, if we would win a battle, he says, the government and the newspapers back then called it a massacre because the Indians won. But any other time it was this huge battle, the Battle of Sand Creek, everything.
Well, when you look at history, it's like we lost our land,
Sure.
we lost our dignity, we
Yep.
were killed off in large numbers, and now they're saying, oh, we want to honor you by wearing a Redskins t-shirt because they're so brave
Exactly.
and ferocious and
Exactly.
victorious.
Yeah.
So what is it?
Well, what I always say, and I cut through all that, and I just say it's money. It's just money. I always tell people, you want to show me honor? Come on to my house and have some chili. Come on to my house and let's talk about your family and my family. That's showing me honor. Wearing those kind of cartoon characters that you paid somebody else for, that's supposed to look like me. Like I tell people, do I really look like Chief Wahoo? Does any Indian you know have that good of teeth? Well, no, Wabado's got good teeth, so he's, and them are his. But really, it's a cartoon character and it's a caricature. So I actually equate this, and I did this at a grade school in Pennsylvania this spring. To get the point across to these fourth and fifth graders, I asked if anybody was German. So two young boys come up. So I told this little guy here first, I says, okay, we're going to name your school, what's your name? And he says, Keith. I said, all right, we're going to now call it Keith's Kickers. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a cartoon character of your face, and all your sports team are going to be walking like with the goose step. You know, I said, because to me that's German, so we're honoring you. And he kind of looked at me, so I turned to the other guy, I said, so what's your name? And he says, Pete. And I says, you're German, eh? And he went, yeah. And I says, tell you what, we found out they don't want to do Keith stuff, so we're going to go to you. So you take that whole thing again, you look at leadership, you look at power, you look at courage. Now we're going to take your face, kind of scrunch it up and change it, give you this little mustache, and we're going to call this place Pete's Hitlers. And they're going to be called the Nazis, because again, Hitler was supposed to be this strong, powerful leader. He got your country into a world war, led all these millions of people, slaughtered millions of people. So why not, can't we do that? And he went, well, he wasn't nice. And I went, yeah, but you're standing next to me. Don't you think I'm nice? And he went, oh yeah. Well then why do you think I should feel proud of some cartoon character or some white man running around, thing paying me honor? And he went, I ain't right. I went, exactly. So
Is it young people that get it?
young people get it more than the old people. For instance, when I had the exhibit at the Indian Community School in Milwaukee, and they brought in all of their second graders, I held up a picture to the whole class, and it was a picture of a powwow dancer and he, dog warrior, you know, with the full head thing. I held up this picture. I said, all right, everybody, is this a picture of a real Indian? And second graders yelling, yeah, you know. Then I went over and I picked up my headband thing that's got the Chief Wahoo thing. I said, all right, is this a real Indian? And then second graders all went, no. That's second grade. They get it. But you get to the older class, you get to older people, and they're going, well, they don't know anything. Well, yeah, they know exactly. And I actually sometimes refer to your story about your son, what he went through at school, you know? That's the real world, and that's the part people don't understand, is that people like of our generation now, so we look at our kids and our grandkids, we're relating them stories that all of our teachers and our parents taught, and about pride and courage and leadership in a good way. But all of a sudden now, a guy comes along with a Cleveland Indians hat and he says, no, this is what Indians look like, you know, or the Washington Redskins. You know, I seen a poster back in the 80s of the Kansas City Chiefs football team, and they had their football pants and their spikes on, but from here on up they had like either a vest or bare-chested or breastplates. They all had headdresses, spears, the whole shot. And the heading on that poster said, Kansas City's real Chiefs. And on the bottom it said, proceeds from the sale of this poster go to such and such and such organization. I called them, it never existed. So again, there's like examples real quick of how and why what I do, just to say, here's the real thing, and that's the main focus.
Something to do with money.
Exactly.
And that's bittersweet wins.
And that's bittersweet wins. And that's exactly it. Is that real quickly? My latest addition to bittersweet wins, I have the actual hand-drawn original rendering that the gentleman did in Milwaukee when the Braves moved here from Boston, and it's the actual, real, first ever Milwaukee Braves, which is now Atlanta Braves, sketch. And the man who had that donated it so I can use in the exhibit. That's real stuff, you know?
I remember a story saying, hey, Indian man. Is that part of what got you into some of this?
No, Hey, Indian Man is it's actually a title of a song from the group, from our band. And real briefly what it is I had to go see a guy on our res, on the Menominee res, and I didn't know really which house it was, so I'm walking, just like pull up, there's three little Menominee guys walking by, like 7, 8, and 9, and the oldest one, who I'm going to say is 8, 9 years old, and he's dragging a big stick. As I get out, I said, hey, tell me, I says, is this where the Kellys live? And they all look, and he just kind of takes that stick and goes, you know. So I start walking up the driveway, and all of a sudden, all I hear is this little high-pitched voice, and it went, hey, Indian man. And I turned around, and that little kid's with the stick, and he's going, and I'm laughing, and it's the right house. So I get back in the van, and my wife is laughing, I'm laughing. She went, well, you got dissed by an 8-year-old. So I wrote this song, Hey Indian Man, and then it became the name of our little business at home. So yeah, and we're making a music video. So yeah.
Progress on the mascot issue. Are you seeing some change in society?
Oh, yeah. I think the most positive change is that a lot of the schools and the communities now are looking at it, I think, from our point of view, and asking a lot of Native people to come to their classroom and to do things and say, hey, really explain to us how and why of this. And the one I'll end with is Shayakton. There's now teachers in Shayakton saying, you know, we got to relook at this, you know. So yeah, there's changes being made both in Wisconsin and nationwide.
Miigwetchin Wawanan to you,
You're
Richie.
welcome, my friend. You betcha.